Send that to Mark. No, just kidding.
I get the answer.
Actually, don't send that to Mark. He'd call me and say, shut up. Don't. Did I ever envision that kind of success coming out of the American Film Institute? And I interned on Born on the 4th of July and then was hired after about 3 weeks of working on it by Bob Richardson into the camera department. I don't know. I think I envisioned myself more successful. No, just kidding. I think, no, you know, I never really did that. I never really thought ahead like, you know, I want to shoot features. I just did what I wanted to do. I love the camera department. I love the craft. I got into it. I didn't get into it like most of us don't get into this initially for money, or it's because we love this business. We love this craft. And so there was sort of a course that I just followed. You know, I just did it. It started here in Utah before 1989. It started back in 1984. And I was working as a camera assistant for Reed Smoot. And Gordon Lonsdale was the first assistant. And with those connections, I bounced around. I worked with other DPs. I know one of the second jobs I did here in Utah was with a DP named Juan Ruiz-Anchilla for a TV movie called Single Bars, Single Women right over here in Park City. And Reed Smoot was the one who helped me get that job. And then I just moved from there. I just kept, the wonderful part, at least for me in this business, is that I loved everything I did. When I was a second assistant, I loved it. When I was a first, I loved it. When I became an operator, which I did for 8 years for a lot of the same cameramen I just mentioned that I was assisting for, I operated for them as well. I loved it. And almost in each position, I thought, this is where I'll probably be for the rest of my career. So to say, you know, did I ever think I'd be so successful? I guess not. No, because I just sort of followed a course. I worked as an operator then on a show called Jag for almost 6 years before I had the opportunity to start shooting that same show. And then that segued into the show that I'm still doing now. Just signed on to for the 16th season, NCIS for CBS. How do you bring the A game? The answer to that question is sort of the same answer as I gave you to the first question, and that is I love the craft. It's an obsession. I passionately love what I do. And that mixed with that I'm very familiar with these group of guys, Mark Horowitz, Charles Johnson, Mark Harmon. I now have known them for many, many years, and they trust me. And so they really kind of allow me to do just about anything I want on the show. I'll read a script and I'll get an idea. I'll want to change it up. I'll look at different camera packages, different lensing. And, you know, God bless them, they let me do it. They let me take a lot of risks and a lot of chances. And so that keeps me excited. You know, every show is in some way, I'll incorporate something it's almost like a little test for me. But the bottom line is that no matter how many times you shoot in a set, no matter how many times you shoot the same face, there's always something a little bit different. It's a different scene, they're different words, and I get excited about finding that different angle. There is a lot of pressure, episodic TV, I think on any level. I mean, you could be doing a show like they're doing right now down in Provo. And I hear what they're doing. I have a lot of friends working on that show. Or you could be doing NCIS, or you could be doing a limited series like you just finished here for one of the cable or, you know, one of the new outlets. They all carry with it a lot of pressure. There's a lot of money per minute when you're in production being spent. For me, you know, I mean, fortunately, I've had the experience. First of all, I started as a camera assistant. I moved up to operator, then DP'd. Along that path, I got to work for some remarkable DPs, great directors, wonderful producers, and I watched them and I learned an awful lot from them. And so, of course, that experience gives you a lot of background and that great footing. So when you run into the challenges, when the sun's going down, when there's a time issue, when there's a money issue or crew issue, you have some basis to work from to deal with that pressure. Otherwise, I go with my gut. There's a lot of planning. I go to bed reading the pages for the next day. I wake up the next morning with the ideas, and that's how I deal with it. To prepare for a new show, script is everything. Script is God. Script is the Bible. Script is the core, and that's what I feed from. The second thing as a director of photography that I do is I'll get to the director. In episodic, sometimes that's a little tricky because I'll be shooting a show while they're starting to prep the next one. But I'll often email or text. I'll open up that line of communication with the directors I've worked with several times. They know me, I know them. They already know the routine. They'll sometimes contact me. Who was it? James Whitmore Jr. is one of the regular directors on our show. Wonderful guy, obviously long, steeped background of acting and directing forever. And he'll often, when he gets a script, it's before I get to read it. He'll often just text or email me, like he did it recently. He just sent me one line saying, he said, think that this character is, I'm trying to remember what the word, exactly how he phrased it. It was wonderful. Anyways, James Whitmore Jr. directed one of our episodes, and he just emailed me a one-line sentence. Oh, voyeur, think voyeur. And my mind just kind of exploded. And then when I got the script the next day, it was a writer's draft. I started reading that, and I just plugged that one little phrase into the shots. Always, camera's constantly moving, always kind of at a distance, always peeking around corners, looking from places. And that's how I prep. That's any kind of script. If you were to look at my last season of NCIS, you would see a significant difference between that and season 13 and season 5 and season 1. And especially last season, because of the freedom that they've given me, you'd even see differences between episode 1 and episode 15 and the last episode we shot in episode 24. Even in visual, lighting style, that kind of stuff, just having fun and really looking at how I can take that story, how I can take that script and sort of lift it off the page visually. I believe that the whole reason our show is going into a 16th season, that it's a wonderful, great place to work. And has been so successful is primarily because of Mark. I mean, the old saying, the fish rots from the head down. And in most shows, I have to tell you, most of the shows I've ever done, somebody sort of spins out of control. Something happens that can upset the machinery. Mark has got one of the greatest work ethics. He's taught me things. Just sometimes as simple as write a thank you letter with your own hand. Just sit down and write a little note, even if it's 3 sentences, that kind of thing. I know my mom taught me that when I was 6, but you go through this business and kind of a tough, competitive, selfish sort of business. You sort of forget some of those things. And he brings all of that kind of ethic to the show. He's literally the guy who will give you the shirt off his back. I've seen an electrician go up to him. He was wearing like a felt plaid shirt, I don't know, something. And the guy came and go, I love that shirt. It's hanging on the hanger on the back of the electric truck at the end of the day with a tag with the guy's name on it. That kind of a guy. He still works out of a small trailer. Our relationship is wonderful. I adore him. I look at him like a brother. He's taught me so much, and he's a lesson. It's an education how you can do this business with the pressure that you were talking about, with the stress, with all of the outside crazy and influence from, you know, the network, from the studio, from people, guest actors who are coming in who may start to get spin a little out of control or something. He's a lesson how you bring that all together, how you calm it down. You know, he was a football player at UCLA, 70, 71. He was their quarterback. And that's kind of how he runs a show. He runs it like a team. And everybody, it doesn't matter who you are. Craft service to the writers, showrunners, executive producers, it doesn't matter what you do. You're part of that team. And that team is only as strong as its weakest link. And that's how he, you know, everybody gets that same consideration. What makes a good cinematographer? Well, I can say the cinematographers that I really adore, really respect, really get excited about. I just went to a panel myself for The Crown. Adriano Goldman, I believe is his name, the DP on that. I couldn't wait to get to him after the panel. You know, I literally stood in line to go up and shake his hand and say, what are you doing with that? You know, I noticed you're using the Sony 55, which is a real high-end, very crisp. I'm not a fan of, I got to be careful. The Sonys tend to be very high-end. I sort of very peaky. You see that video, and I said, it looks absolutely beautiful. And we started talking about these lenses. He found an old set of Panchro lenses at Panavision. He had them re-encased them. He has 2 sets. He uses those. That's what gives it that kind of soft, smooth, I don't want to say soft, smooth, beautiful sort of feel. And that's how he's dealing with the digital and that high-end peaking and all those kinds of issues that we deal with now. What makes a great cinematographer is that guy. You know, the guy who's always sort of reaching ahead, always looking for the next opportunity visually, who is familiar with the masters, who will be in Boston, would love to go to the art museum and just stand there and stare at one of the great Dutch classics, trying to figure out, you know, just exactly how that light plays the face. Yet at the same time is on the head of the curve, the digital curve, and figuring out what's the best way to manipulate that image to tell that story. I think what I look for in a script is what everybody looks for, what the actor is going to look for, what the producer is going to look for, what everybody looks for. I'm looking for the story. I'm looking to read something that makes me want to turn that next page, that comes off the page, that when I close it, I'm laughing, I'm crying, I'm excited by that. I'm thinking about it when I wake up the next morning. The first thought that pops into my head is a scene or, that story. I'm my age. I was 55. I'm a sucker. When I go to a movie, when the lights go down and the image starts to play, when that movie starts to go, I tend to forget everything. My wife will be there and we'll walk out of the movie and she'll say, God, you know that one scene, did you notice the continuity? I mean, none of it matched, and I didn't like this actor, and those lines didn't make any sense. And I'm going, what? What are you talking? I'll have to watch it again. I can watch it again and be a little bit more critical the second time, but I'm kind of like I was when I was 8. I'll walk into a theater and I just give myself to that format, to that journey. Outside of NCIS, I'm always busy. I'm always looking at things. It's a little bit tough because I'm contracted to my episodic TV show, which takes 9 months of the year, which leaves about 3 months. And if it doesn't fit into that window, it can be a little bit challenging to participate. But I'm always doing stuff. I did a short with an actor friend of mine named Joel Gretsch just a couple of hiatuses ago. And it did wonderfully at the film festivals. It was a, wildly fun project to work on. And he's now developing a feature film based on that project. Again, I'm in love with the craft, so I'm always looking at new things or different things to do. Family in the motion picture industry. Tough. And no matter how you cut it up, no matter who you are, no matter what position or department you work in, that's a tricky one. I have a wonderful wife. I have 4 children, and thank goodness she's such a great mom because she's raised them. I've also been very fortunate. I won the lottery. You know, I fell into a TV show that's a successful television show. It's in LA. It's close. It's not far from where I live. I come home every night. And if there was any kind of discipline at all for me personally, it's that I sort of avoided the trappings of, you know, sort of middle-aged play and game, which means like I don't golf. The weekends were devoted to the kids. You know, it's like, what do we do? No. I've worked in Utah. I started here, really. I went to Brigham Young University. There was a guy there who was kind of running that little department back then, named Bob Stum, and he would hire me and started teaching me a little bit about the camera and helping him assist on small projects for the university and whatever. I hooked up then with Reed Smoot and Gordon Lonsdale and did some projects with them. I remember doing a thing called A Field So White, a Lex Diaz-Vito little movie with them. And then went on to assist Gordon Lonsdale, work as an assistant for him on commercials and things here locally. After that, I came back, totally unrelated, with another director of photography and I did a couple of TV movies here. The one that I mentioned earlier with Juan Ruiz and Chia here in Park City. I did another TV movie here with Hilary Swank was the lead actress in that. And then the last time I worked here was quite a while ago, and it was a small independent thing called Church Ball with Kurt Hale and Dave Hunter. And by the way, had a wonderful time. A lot of my crew from my TV show from Hollywood came with me, worked at a low flat rate, and we had a ball. My second, right? Yeah, this is my second visit here to the beautiful, phenomenal facility. I told Marshall when he gave me a tour about a year ago, I said, boy, you know, I want to try to find something just to work in this facility. As a matter of fact, my 16-year show, #1 TV show, viewed by 63 million worldwide, is shot in a little warehouse in Valencia, California, across the freeway from Magic Mountain. You know, with like 15-foot ceilings, no green beds, no nothing. So to be able to come and work in a facility like this that's my next fantasy. All right, one of the best pieces of advice I ever received is when I was a fellow at the American Film Institute studying cinematography. There was a wonderful guy who would come in kind of as a pseudo part-time instructor named Harry Wolf. He was actually a camera assistant on Gone with the Wind. And he told me, you know, that, look, the passion, the excitement, the ideas, all the creativity, that's great. That's the drive. That's the obsession. You know, you asked me earlier, like, what keeps you going on the show, same show, shooting the same sets and faces on and on and on. That's what drives that. But he said that's not enough. It also takes a discipline. It takes setting the alarm. It takes getting up in the morning. It takes, you know, setting that time aside on a weekend or a holiday to reread that script, make the notes. It takes that discipline to do the job. I guess really like any job or any successful person. Stephen Lighthill, who runs the cinematography program at the American Film Institute now, has me come and speaks to the students once in a while. And one of the first things I say to him is, I said, if you love this job so much that you're willing to work for free for the next 10 years of your life, then you'll make it.